the neighborhood. Obviously, there are a lot of students who live there. But you actually mentioned on your website the pilot program. You're not in favor of raising pilot payments for the universities. Why? Because a lot of people, homeowners, taxpayers, are saying this is something that we need to do because it's unfair to the taxpayer to have to, you know, have the burden of paying for all of the services that everybody who lives in the city enjoys.
Well, first of all, the pilot program with universities, the universities pay for services too. They're paying for utilities, they're paying for land use issues. They're not paying taxes because they're not making a profit. These are institutions that are solely dedicated to serving the community. It's the same thing with hospitals, with museums, with Massport, with other organizations that use the pilot program. And what you have is if you're trying to raise a pilot program to 25% or 30% and mandate these payments, you're not raising enough money to fix the city's budget problems, and you're raising the amount too much to allow these institutions to adjust properly to them. When you have an economy like this, it's much easier for the city to apparently to spend and keep taxing rather than to spend smarter. We need to be looking at being more efficient before we look at taxing the organizations and institutions that are serving our communities.
But this has been a long discussion about raising the pilot program payments.
Right.
So, I mean, the money has to be generated somehow. I agree that perhaps taxing everybody or increasing revenue in that way isn't fair, but it's also not fair to the homeowner who lives here in the city.
You know, and I disagree a little bit as far as whether we need to generate this income. If you look at the city budget, right now the fiscal year 2010 budget is currently for $2.4 billion, and 4 years ago that was $2 billion. That's a 20% spending increase in 4 years, and one of the worst. Excuse me.
Wow. Little action here at
Shocking,
CNN.
right?
We had a cup break behind the scenes. It's all right.
I thought the cough was going to be bad.
But you know, we're essentially talking about a 20% budget increase in one of the worst economies in a generation. I think we really need to be looking at cutting our spending before we look at really hurting the, really taxing people that need the money and the support the most.
Mark, you were chair of Ways and Means,
Yeah,
so
I just
you
want
could
to
probably
correct
answer.
something here. The city spent $2.4 billion in FY09. We are spending under that amount this year, which meant severe cutbacks by all the departments. And as chair of Ways and Means, we didn't have to lay off a single firefighter, a single police officer. We had minimal layoffs to teachers. Thanks to the financial wherewithal by the administration and Lisa Signori, Karen Connor, and the budget office, we were able to take some money from reserves to fund the gap that the state actually gave us $95 million less in state aid this year. So, you know, having said that, we're actually spending in real dollars less money this year than last year. On top of that, the city tax, the property tax, actually stayed stable last year, and some residential homeowners saw a decrease in their property taxes because the commercial tax base was evaluated higher. So now to address the pilots, what we're looking at is a system that is out of balance. You have some institutions, I try not to name them, but an institution may pay $30,000 in pilot payments. Another institution pays $4.5 million. There is no real balance or objectivity to how and why they're paying that amount. I have to applaud Councilor Steve Murphy, who before I was even on the council was a leader on trying to bring some measure of fairness to the pilot payment. And what we're asking for is no more than the colleges and the universities and the hospitals to pay for the services they receive from the city of Boston. And it's in fire protection, it's in police safety, it's public works, it's almost every department that they receive services for and yet don't pay what we think is their fair share.
Ben pointed out that they do pay for services. Do you agree with that?
Utilities are lights and gas to heat the dorms and the buildings. That's not any services that the city gives them. Those are utility companies that provide those services. So the taxpayer isn't paying for those services.
Ben, you had something?